Things may seem somewhat normal now, but it's important not to let our normalcy bias take over and make us think that things are okay for the future. There are lots of things coming our way that could lead to disaster, be it war, the economy, or even something as simple as our broken supply chain. We have a unique opportunity right now to stock up, even with the higher prices, and get the things we may not be able to get in the future. So let's talk about it. In a world riddled with uncertainty, how do you ensure that you keep your wits about you and survive? Food is a basic human need, and it's important to have survival food on a list so that you're prepared when emergencies hit. We know that if anything such as a nuclear event were to be announced, panic buying would start, the stores would be empty within an hour. We already saw that 2 years ago when the pandemic and lockdown started. So we've all been through this already. History has shown us that whether it's a hurricane, an earthquake, or a flood, or any other calamity, or even a war, the first thing people lose access to is food and water. Hopefully, the list I'm going to give you will walk you through the must-have foods that you need to stockpile before a disaster strikes to protect and insulate yourself and family before anything comes to pass. Let's get into what I got on the table here and explain to you. The first thing we're going to talk about is criteria to choose survival foods. So when it comes to choosing survival foods, whether for the short term or long term, there are a few things you need to keep in mind. First of them is shelf life. The whole idea of survival food is to store food that can last for a long time. If the food you choose doesn't have a long shelf life, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. Most items have best by dates written on the packaging itself. It can give you a rough idea, but they can be very, very misleading as well, as food is good for long after those best by dates on a lot of items. So what you really want to do is avoid buying products that last for only a year or less. Obviously, frozen things, stuff like that, things that won't last a good long time. Now, if you freeze meats and stuff and you have a way to keep your freezer running, that's awesome. You're good to go. But short shelf life items, you definitely don't want to use. Next up is ease of preparation. We don't know what kind of emergency or disaster we'll be in, so it's good to choose food products that can be consumed or require as little preparation time as possible. Food items like protein bars, canned beans, and white rice are a good way to go. They don't require a ton of fuel, and some of them can be eaten right out of the can, like that Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs over there. Now, nutritional value, and this is where everybody freaks out a little bit. Just because you're in a situation that requires you to eat stored food for survival doesn't mean it has to be bland or straight up junk food. I don't recommend stockpiling bags and bags of Cheetos and Cheesy Puffs for your survival food. Some of the food you may stock up on may not be the best for you, but ensure that you stock up largely on nutritious foods. We're covering a lot of staple foods, and most staple foods have great nutritional value and are meant to keep you full of energy and fit at the same time when you need that most. Now, lastly is going to be storability. Okay, as much as possible, store your food in airtight containers. The plastic packaging that comes with some food can actually decrease their shelf life, and I've had plastic packaging fail on me too. So you definitely want to put things in a dark kind of airtight environment where you know they'll be safe. Okay, you don't know how long the emergency might extend. It could be a very short-term thing, or it could be something that lasts years. So you need to buy food that won't expire, and you need to buy food that's going to be safely stored away so it won't go bad when you actually need it. Now, we're going to get into the actual items, these must-have items that I feel are important. And the reason I want to do this is because let's say there's a scenario where you're restricted from making regular trips to the grocery store or ordering online. We saw that during the pandemic started. You couldn't go to the grocery store without standing in line for 4 hours. And then when you got in, they may be out of almost everything. So you want to think about these items because they can really be your best bet, and they do have a very long shelf life. Now, the first thing we're going to start off with is rice. And again, most of this stuff's just out of my working pantry. Obviously, you want to store a whole lot more rice than that. It just happened to be what I had in there. This can last 25 years or longer if stored in ideal conditions. If I were you, I'd lay off the brown rice. Like I've explained in other videos, brown rice has a lot of oil in it. It's very high oil content. It won't last more than 12 to 18 months in the pantry. Kind of defeats the purpose of survival food. Now, there is freeze-dried brown rice. That is okay to store. It will take a little bit longer to hydrate than white rice, but it's okay to store. But just regular brown rice, I'd stick with white rice. Brown rice may be a little bit healthier for you, but that will last 25 years if you put it away the right way. And that stuff's 10 years old. I actually took that out of a bag and rotated a big 5-gallon bucket full of rice. That stuff's 10 years old, and obviously I'm using it, so there's nothing wrong with it. Next up, honey. Now, this is always a controversy when I show honey on here, because I get the health warriors that tell me everything I'm showing is not real honey. This is real honey. This is from Joseph's Kitchen. You guys saw me do a video on their bread packages and their wheat packages and their bread machines. That is 100% raw, unfiltered honey. It is good for you. It definitely is awesome. Now, I know some honey things have a best by date on them. It's kind of like the pink salt that has the best by date. It was created 20 million years ago, but it's only good for another year. So you can kind of ignore that if it's real, pure, unfiltered honey. Okay. Honey may get grainy, hard, or change color a little bit after its best by date, but the truth is it won't go bad. Honey doesn't expire, even if it's been previously opened, provided it's stored in good conditions away from the stove or anything that's going to make the changes and temperatures go up and down really tons. Next up, potato flakes. Now, again, from my working pantry, obviously I'm using that, but potato flakes work very, very well. You can store these. They have a shelf life of 20 to 30 years if you store them in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. That one just happened to be one I bought for a video to show it to somebody, and we're just using it. But I do have a lot of them put away in bags, in Mylar, all ready and sealed up. Next up is canned meat, okay? Obviously, we have the canned meat in the middle here. I'll show you what we got. A little tuna, a little beanie weenies, chunk chicken, Vienna sausage, roast beef, and of course, everybody's favorite, or as the meat people love to hate, Spam. Now, canned meat isn't just a tasty little snack or a side dish or something. It's a great survival food, too. Meat is packed with proteins. It's essential for building new cells and maintaining tissues. And canned meat, at least most of it, can be stored for 10 years or more if you store the cans in a cool, dry area. You don't want to keep these things out, say, in my garage here, because right now it's like 22 degrees out here. Of course, I have heaters going. But in the summer, it'll be 122 degrees. So you don't want to store them where temperatures will wildly fluctuate. Put them in a pantry in a dry, cool, dark room. They'll last you a good long time. I've eaten Spam 15 years old. All right, so there's nothing wrong with that. Next up is beans. Now, I do have some lentils here that I recently packaged up. I didn't have an open package of beans to show you, but I like lentils. Don't buy beans you don't like. Don't buy stuff you're not going to eat thinking I'll be hungry later and I'll eat it. But beans have a crazy long shelf life, okay? They go awesome with rice. That's really an unbeatable combo. Now, like rice, beans don't cost an arm and a leg, so they're easy to stockpile. They're kind of a survival superfood, and you'll find a great variety of them that are high in calories and proteins and also contain a fair share of vitamins that you'll need in any survival situation. So now, let's talk about shorter-term survival and disaster food storage. All right, real quick, water. Now, I know water isn't technically a food, but surviving without it's kind of impossible. Your number one priority should be storing water, and I always tell people that when they start prepping. What should I do? Start storing water, then worry about food, okay? Water is very, very important. The first thing that cuts off during most emergencies is the water, so it's necessary to store enough water to drink, cook, and take care of your hygiene. Again, I just have a little Nalgene bottle. You want to store a whole lot more than that. 55-gallon drums work very well. I do have an interesting water storage solution that's going to be coming to you very soon. There are tons of interesting ways to store water. You can even empty out your 1-liter bottles or 2-liter bottles, rinse them out really good and store water in that. Water is very important. Canned food. Now, we already covered canned meats, but I'm just talking about canned food in general. Very easy to eat. You can eat it right out of the can. Very simple. And remember, I told you, you may need to be able to eat stuff as quickly as possible, and you may not have a way to cook it. So stuff like this is always handy. Is it health food? Heck no. But when you're starving, it'll keep you alive. Vegetables, non-vegetables, anything you can eat quickly, very, very handy. Next up, powdered milk. Okay, now powdered milk, they say, has a shelf life of 2 years. I have stored it away, and I've gotten at least 7 to 8 to 9 years out of it, even 10 years, I think. One of my older containers of it, I'm trying not to bump the camera while I do this. This is what it comes in at the store where I buy it. Now, you can pack it up, as you see I have back here. Okay, that was packed up this year. So it is easy to store, easy to put away. Very, very handy, and it really is a staple. So just by adding water to the powdered milk, you're going to have a good dairy substitute, and that's where the water comes in again. Now we're going to talk about peanut butter. Peanut butter is a great source of concentrated energy. It does require refrigerations at times, but that's not a hard, fast rule. Again, this has been used out of my working pantry. You'll see it's already been used. I haven't refrigerated it. I just stick it in the pantry. It does stay a little cooler in there, but not crazy freezing cold. There is also powdered peanut butter, as you can see there. This stuff actually tastes really good. It's really weird. You start mixing it up like, wow, that's real peanut butter. So it is really good. Now, something I don't have pictured up here, and that is energy bars. Energy bars are awesome. Again, going on that idea of you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where you're going to be. You may not be able to cook. You may be trapped somewhere, and you may have to eat energy bars because you can't pop up on the stove and start cooking. Energy bars, very, very important. All right, let's talk about the long-term disaster survival staple type foods that you're going to need now, and you should start picking up before they become unavailable. Okay, so it's a far stretch, but it's not impossible. Just like the pandemic pushed us into quarantining with what little we had to sustain us, there may be a time where you have to isolate yourself from the outside world. Your main priority is going to be survival. In that case, you do need to prepare for such an event that may last 6 months to a year. Remember, your food requirement may not be the same as before. If it comes to your reserve foods for long term, you have to consider various factors. Now, we all have those days where we could use some comfort food, and there could be a huge plus in the case of long-term survival. But there's also ingredients that enhance the taste of food, and thankfully, their shelf lives are 10 years or longer. Now, those, really quickly, because I don't want to keep you all day here, include sugar, okay, salt, raw honey. Again, back there we have our raw honey. Show it to you, okay. You've got cooking oil. I use olive oil and some vegetable oil. I try not to use it as much, as well as coconut oil. Condiments and spices, definitely, if you want your food to taste good. And this is how I've told people, you can buy these things over, mine's over by the bakery, but these things are very economical, and they will make your food taste a whole lot better if you're eating stuff that's kind of bland. You know, I'd much rather have beans and rice with a little garlic and onion in it, maybe, instead of just plain beans and rice. Also important to store things like soy sauce and, you know, stuff like that that you can add in hot sauce, that you can add in and add different flavors so you don't get too much food fatigue. Condiments and spices, really, really important. Next up, we're going to talk about vinegar. Vinegar is used in almost anything, from cleaning to cooking to everything. It's a good staple. It is fairly inexpensive still, and you can pick it up at your stores. There's no runs on vinegar. Next up, coffee and coffee beans, okay? I do have some beans that aren't ground that I have bagged up in Mylar. I do keep this stuff here, and this is pretty well packaged. I rotate through it every year, usually, most of my storage. So what I'll do is I'll take a new one, put it in my storeroom, take the old one out. Remember, you want to use first in, first out, or FIFO, as they say, to keep your stuff rotated. You put the old stuff, the new stuff in the back, and the old stuff up front. So you can just grab the old stuff, move everything up, and put your new stuff in the back. Lastly is going to be tea, okay? Tea over here. This is some dried jasmine tea. If you have a steeper, you can do it this way. Just tea bags works too. And I did forget one thing, and that's wheat berries and flour. Now, you guys have seen, I will put a link down to Joseph's Kitchen if you're interested in getting some of the wheat berries they have and their packages. They have all sorts of bread making packages. You've seen me do videos on that. I actually baked a loaf of bread right on camera. So you definitely want to check them out too. But you can get the wheat berries from them. I do have some flour out here again from my working pantry that works very well. That and some baking soda and some salt, and you got yourself some bannock bread, you know. And again, you can toss in some onions, some garlic in the bread. So that's why you want your spices as well. You want to buy in bulk during discounts and sales. This will not only keep it more affordable for you, but it will also provide you a longer term stability in terms of food ration. You'll have more food put away. Knowing how to safely store food and water can reduce stress and inconvenience brought on by the sudden threat of an emergency. It's always recommended you store the things that you normally cook. I don't want to see people buying stuff that they'll say, oh, well, I'm hungry, I'll eat it. No, buy the stuff you normally eat, because you don't want to change what your body is used to in a disaster situation. You got enough stress going on. You want to be eating what you normally put in your body. And that way, too, you can rotate things into your normal life. Like if I need more garlic, I just go in here and take it. And I go to the store that day later and buy garlic. The only thing I haven't rotated today was one of my top lights that went out. So I have to go to Home Depot after the video for that. Anyway, I hope this helps you guys out, both old and new preppers. Get your food pantries in order. Given the threats we're facing these days, it's definitely time to start thinking about it. And for that information, just because I'm mentioning that, I do want to let you guys know that Freeze Dry Wholesaler is having their huge end of the year sale now. You can really stock up. You can save from 10 to 30%. No product restrictions. You can order whatever you want. It does go up in what you buy. If you buy $800 worth of stuff, you're going to use their code spend and save 10 at checkout. You'll save 10%. It goes up all the way up to $3,000. If you spend a $3,000 order, if you buy a $3,000 order, you can save up to 30% with your spend and save 30. I will put those codes down below. I know saying spend $3,000 sounds like a lot of money, but let me tell you, as somebody who watches what comes in from that, from the orders, that's a rather common order. You guys will be spending at least $800. So if you're interested in really stocking up and bolstering right now, my link will save you 15% if you just want to buy a few things. But you can use the codes and save even more. And you can still use my link down below, and that will still give you credit for what you're buying. Underneath that, we have our Amazon affiliate store. Do check that out. Even if you're not interested in what I'm selling in the store, click the link and shop as you normally would. Really helps us out. And we have our My Patriot Supply. Again, stock up on your basics and your food. Prepare with iridium.com. We got an awesome deal on some 3-month and 2-week and 4-week kits there. Lots of money to be saved. There's $250 off the 3-month kit, so that's definitely a good deal. And our Thrive Life freeze-dried food store as well. I don't have any Thrive out here, but you can bet that I have a lot of it put away in stock. Anyway, folks, I hope this video helped you guys out, especially you newer preppers. Stay safe and stay prepared.